Hi, I'm Lidia Infante, and this is SEO in 2024.
Lydia, what's your number one SEO tip for 2024?
I think my number one SEO tip is to actually embrace and accept that AI has changed the economics of content marketing. And what that means is that what was an advantage before, being able to create lots of content that meets the user intent and responds to high search volume queries, is no longer a competitive advantage. That means that differentiation is key, right? So you either have to provide the best possible content and understand your audience the best, or have an extremely recognizable brand.
The economics of content marketing. I like that phrase.
I mean, that is true. Like, creating content now is just table stakes, right? Because my mom can go and ask ChatGPT, whatever.
Absolutely. So it's a lot easier to create content, but is that negative for SEOs?
I don't think it's negative. It's not negative for good SEOs. If your whole strategy has revolved around copying whatever the top 10 ranking people were doing and then regurgitating it into a blog post of your own, then I would say you are kind of screwed. But if you are creating strategies that put the user first, then you can really, really benefit from the flood of bad content that I think we are about to see on the web, and differentiating yourself by making actually audience-led content.
So how do you put the user first when you're creating your content?
It's not just the user, it's also the author, right? So imagine this massive sludge of words that are AI generated. In fact, let me give you an example of a recent experience I had. I was part of the Blue Array Academy Summer of SEO giveaway, where a lot of people applied to get a scholarship for a Blue Array course through me. And I decided that I wanted to read all of the application and go through them. Now, so many were written through ChatGPT and didn't let the human shine. After I read those applications about how passionately they feel about their training, it was very obvious to me that there was no human behind it. And the applications that actually touched me and made me, ended up successfully receiving the scholarship were the ones that told me a story about them, a genuine, unique differentiation of the human that was talking to me. So I think when you're making content in this era of AI, and you can use AI to help yourself, you can use AI to do content repurposing, editorial tasks, improve readability, even create the content in some cases, if you're doing a very good user research to begin with. But what you need to be doing is to speak from a human to a human. I try to bring out the particular opinion and specific anecdotes and examples that my subject matter experts have. I try to make it shine through in the content. And it also makes you strike a delicate balance between brand voice guidelines and the tone of voice that these people have, right? So yeah, make your authors shine. So when it comes to the authors, yes.
Do you think it's obvious to the average user that ChatGPT or another AI has created a piece of content? And is it not possible to prompt an AI to incorporate things like anecdotes within the text?
Yeah, you can if you give it the anecdotes. If you don't give it the anecdotes, they're going to be the same one that someone else is getting. And this is more evident when you're at scale. So back to the anecdote that nobody else can replicate because it's mine and mine alone. When I was reading all of these applications, the first application that I read created by AI, I was like, man, this person has put so much work onto this. This is awesome. And then I read the next one and it was the same. And I read the next one and it was the same.
What do you mean by the same? Do you mean the same structure? Do you mean the same?
The same structure, the same tone. They literally had just copy-pasted the list of questions in the application, and ChatGPT had regurgitated those answers, standard answers. Now I could make, and I do, like some of my social media content is created through ChatGPT because it helps me scale my own content repurposing and content distribution. But what I do is I prompted very clearly and I use examples of my tone of voice and previous content to say what I want to say. And when I prompt it, I tell ChatGPT, be friendly, be approachable, be warm, be helpful, all of the things that are my unique tone of voice. That's, well, you've been recording like 50 of these, right now, or 60 of these.
Plus, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure that speaking to me is not the same as speaking to everybody that came before. And everybody that came before had their own tone of voice and their own inflections when they speak. You can see that I get very easily excited. I make a lot of faces. My voice goes up and down, and I convey a lot of emotion when I speak to you. A generic, unprompted, plain AI is going to be outputting blah, sludge. But an AI that's been prompted to be funny in the way that I'm funny, or that's shown my humanly written content before, as an example, is able to output something that does replicate my tone of voice. So yeah, you can create good content prompting an AI, and you can create content that channels the human, even when you're creating it with AI.
Okay, so your tip is that you can actually utilize AI to write the content on your behalf, but only if you prompt it thoroughly. Don't be lazy. Don't just rely on it to come up with the text without any input in terms of defining its character.
I wouldn't just say thoroughly, right? Because everybody can prompt it thoroughly and be offering like brief and a very extensive, detailed list of facts that you want to incorporate. Brief it to speak like you. Brief it to have a voice. Brief it to replicate the things that make your voice unique. And brief it to let your human experiences shine, right? So, for example, another thing that I'm doing as part of my content strategies is I work with a ghostwriter that interviews some of my subject matter experts so that we can accelerate like the amount of content by subject matter experts that we're creating. So instead of dedicating 2 weeks to writing something that they're not good at writing and they don't really want to write and they have their full-time jobs, they dedicate 1 hour of their time to get interviewed by my ghostwriter and 20 minutes to review the content. I had to even like brief my ghostwriter to speak in first person as if they are the author and to not remove the anecdotes and specific examples from their extensive working experience from the content. So we don't just want to tell you, like, for example, the type of content that I'm working on, we don't just want to tell you about the theory of multi-site CMSs. But if you have an expert that's had like one mishap that they'd like to talk about, don't remove it just because it's not on the brief. It's adding color, right? So include that type of humanness in your content strategy, be it because you're creating it with AI or you're creating it with something else. Bring the human author into it.
Will you still be using a ghostwriter in a year's time?
What I might be using in a year's time is an interviewer, a reporter like yourself, who asks the questions, and then a transcript AI that identifies key phrases and structure and transforms it into an article. But I think that's going to take a lot of prompting, a lot of prompt engineering, and a lot of work to get that done. Maybe in a year I'll still be using a ghostwriter. I don't think I will in 3 to 5 years.
And what about marking up the content? Where's the role for Schema in this? Do you still want to mark up each piece of content to give you the best possible chance to rank it highly and have feature snippets from your piece in the SERP?
Yeah, so I also use schema markup in combination with AI, and I think that's really fun. So for my authors, and because the key central theme of my tip is to put the human at the center, both the author and the reader, I like to highlight my author's expertise. And in order for the expertise and their author bio to be the most EEAT friendly as possible, what I do is I give them a template, they fill out some questions, and I build out this very EEAT friendly bio. Now I have a GPT-driven engine read those bios and output knows about schema, output detailed person schema with their qualification and with their job role. Now, if I just publish that, it would break. Like it does not pass validation standards at all. So it needs a little bit of a layer where I go on to schema.org validation and I tweak the JSON because it's making it up for the most part. So I do tweak the JSON and I feed back the warnings and errors that the schema validator is sending my way to the AI until the schema is perfect. Now, this is my very first iteration of this. When I manage to do this at scale, it's going to be huge. You can do this for authors, right? And then you want to nest that author schema onto the article so that search engines don't have to jump into the author URL to learn explicitly what this author knows about and explicitly about their EEAT. You want to nest it onto the article and be as explicit as possible with your schema. But then on the article, you can combine different tools and different uses of AI to output what this article is about using schema, right? So yeah, that's that's the combination of AI, the expertise of the author, and schema markup that I think is going to really win for you in 2024.
You said GPT-driven engine. Do you do that natively within ChatGPT, or is there other software that uses ChatGPT in order to produce the schema for you?
You can use the API onto a software that you write yourself. So like you can connect the API onto like systems that you're making for yourself. That is what I'm doing.
Would you advise most SEOs to do that, or is there another piece of third-party software that they should use?
I would say if you want to do it at scale, do that. There's some third-party software that can approximate to this, but I'm not currently using that at the moment. And you can even ask, like with a combination, because as all of Twitter knows, I married a developer, right? So I bring him over like, install Node.js on my thing. How do I get Python going? With a little bit of curiosity, perseverance, and some assistance, especially free assistance. You can get those apps running for your specific thing. Something that people don't understand and that my husband and I work on together all the time is prompting over prompts. So for example, when I got my tone of voice guidelines of my own brand, my personal brand as me, human, I fed it a bunch of articles of example. But then if I were to refeed it all of these articles as examples of my tone of voice to the engine, I would find that I'm running out of tokens or that it is too costly for me to run this API. You can do this in many different ways. There's two that I prefer. Give it my content and say output a prompt for yourself that would make you speak in this tone of voice guidelines. And then it does it. And then you just copy paste the prompt. But what I like to do as well is once it's outputted the prompt, you ask it, what are some fragments of the text that you have used and that were most relevant for you to create this prompt that you've made for yourself? And then you get those fragments. And now you have two layers, the prompt and the fragments. You can ask ChatGPT to integrate them together so that it provides its own examples on the tone of voice that you've got.
If an SEO is struggling for time now, what should they stop doing so they can spend more time doing what you suggest, being human and AI in 2024?
They should stop writing content for the sake of writing content, right? The search volumes are a guideline, but I can't remember what the stats are right now. But a lot of searches that happen every day are completely new. So understanding your audience and what they need and talking to them, you can even use AI to interview them and extract key phrases out of that conversation. Make the content that they say they need, not the content that has volume. Don't sacrifice quality and helpfulness for quantity. So maybe reduce the number of blog posts that you think you're going to write from 10 to 5 and make those 5 better researched.
If an SEO has started a new role in an organization and they see that there are thousands of articles, thousands of blog posts that don't really get much traffic and are probably not core relevant to what the business does, should they cull a large percentage of those articles in order for the website to focus on the core content that is relevant to the business?
I would say I would evaluate why these articles are not driving profit, right? And there's a problem that I'm facing right now, and there's so many paths to go through that I'm struggling. So maybe this question is going to help me make a decision as well. Okay, you are new to a role, you arrive on this website has a lot of content. Not all of this content is performing. First, I want to figure out why this content is not performing. I want to classify this content that's not performing into groups regarding to like the cause. Is this content very outdated? Does it not matter anymore? Right? I want to know. Put it in a group. Is this content not performing because it's not optimized? Put it in a group. Is this content not performing because the search intent for the query has shifted, but it performed in the past? And what does it mean that it's not performing? Is it not performing organically? Do people navigate to it from the site? Does it get any engagement? Does it get any links? I want to know all of these things. And out of that information, I'm going to be making informed decisions on what to do for each. So if the search intent has shifted, I would say, can I rebuild this content to refit the search intent? If it's not optimized, I would try to optimize and evaluate in 3 months' time. Now I can't remember what the first piece was. Was it outdated or yeah?
Or just should you get rid of it? Yeah.
Yeah, take the right approach, but understand why they're not working first. But then you might find that somebody has started writing nonsense content that's not related to your core concepts of the brand. And they're just creating this because it was high volume, right? In that case, what I would want to do is map what my brand is about. So what is my core product, right? Then what is the problem that my product solves? Then what is the audience that we are solving this product for? Then what other problems does this audience have? That would be my content universe, and anything that doesn't fit that content universe needs to go.
Great advice. Lidia Infante is a senior SEO manager at Sanity, and you can find her over at lidia-infante.com. Lidia, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2024.
Thank you for having me.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2024, the book, over at SEOin2024.com.